Father's Day cards for our craft this week. I've got 3 different ones that we're going to make today. You can make them with the same exact look, or you can use some of the principles we're going to use here to make a different image, but still kind of in the same style. So we've got here, just your general card, but it's got some textured elements to it that aren't just paper. We've got another card here, all paper, but folded in a pretty cute way. And then we've got another one here that's all paper, but it's pop-up. To make all these cards, we've got some supplies that you'll need. We obviously need some paper. We are using construction paper, but you can use whatever you've got at home, printer paper, notebook paper, cardstock paper. We have some scissors. I have big and little scissors, but if you have medium scissors, that's probably all you need. I just didn't have any medium ones. I've got some glue here, and then I got some things that I've prepped ahead of time so that you don't have to look at me cutting things out. I've got a cute little whale shape with some water. It's just paper that I've cut in the shape of a whale. I didn't use any kind of stencil or anything, I just cut it. But if you are a stencil kind of person, you can just go on, Google search a whale, and then you'll be able to trace something and cut it out. I've also got some watermelon pieces cut out of foam. Got a handful of little watermelon seeds that are probably difficult to see on the camera, but we've also got some fruit and rind. Again, I just looked at a picture and kind of cut some shapes, but if you're a tracer, you can find a picture of a watermelon slice online and trace it that way. And then I've got some scrap white paper here that I have colored some designs on. For one of our cards, we're also going to need a ruler and a pencil, just to make sure we get a straight line. If you are a great drawer, then you might not need a ruler, but I need a ruler to help me draw a straight line. So let's start with our card all the way here with our textured foam element. If you don't have foam at home and you just want to use paper, you can make the same cute little watermelon with just paper, that's fine. So I've got a piece of construction paper here, folded it in half to make a card. And you'll notice here on the one I made before we started, I put some white paper on here because my green paper was pretty dark and I didn't think it would be easy to see any words that I wanted to write on my card. So I put some white paper on there just to make it easier to read anything written. So we're going to do that on this card, show you how to do that. And I've got my watermelon foam bits. Got my big pile of watermelon seeds here. And we've got the glue. All right, so you're going to start out, you're going to fold your piece of paper in half so that the short edges touch. That's going to make your card shape. And then, really easy, you're just going to glue those white pieces of paper in the middle. Now for my papers here, I didn't want the white to go all the way to the edges. I wanted to show a little bit of that green. I just wanted a good space to write. So I've got some glue on here, and I cut a little bit of the edges off so my white paper is not as big as my green paper here. So I'm just going to glue that right in the center. I'm not using my ruler for this one. I'm just guessing about the center, but if you would like to make sure it's super duper centered, then you can get your ruler out. So there you go. You got your white paper on your green background. I'm going to do the same inside, so I've got a nice space to write a nice message. Right in the center again. And when I put this inside, I'm going to put it in the center of the right side, because when I write a card, I write it on the right side. Okay, next up, only thing left for this one. It looks really cute because it has this 3D element, but it's super easy. It's just a bunch of glue and pieces. I've got my watermelon pieces here. I'm going to start out gluing down my watermelon fruit part. That's the biggest one, but it's also the one on the bottom. Put some glue around the edge so that it doesn't come up. I don't want to put too much glue on because then that's going to make my paper soggy, but I want enough glue to have it stick. I'm going to put my watermelon off at an angle, but you could always put your watermelon straight up and down or straight side to side or face in the other angle. Next up, we're gonna put that rind on the watermelon. Same thing, glue around the edge and just pop it right on there. The seeds are a little tricky because they're so tiny. There we go, I got my seeds on. I cut a few more than I really needed. But you remember how I said if you put a lot of glue on there, your paper's gonna get wet? Even if you put just a little bit of glue on, your paper's probably still gonna get wet because there's water in the glue. That's what makes it flow. So before I write on my card, you'll see on this one over here, after it was done, we wrote a cute saying, "You're one in a melon." I'm not gonna write that on my card yet. I'm gonna wait for the glue to dry and then write on my card because when paper is wet, it rips a lot easier. This looks so cute, I just don't want to rip it. So I'm going to put this to the side to dry, and later we can write on it. All right, next up, we can work on this cute card that has a, looks like a shirt with a tie. This one is pretty easy to make. All you're going to need is paper. We've got, one sheet of paper to make the card, and then I just used a piece of white paper that I colored some designs on. To cut the tie out. If you have some paper that's already patterned, you can do that. For this one, you can see I drew some stripes. The one we're going to make next, I drew some spirals. Any kind of shape you like is great. Okay, so first we're going to, just like the other one, take our paper, fold it short edge to make that card shape. And then we're going to open it back up. For this card, you can see on the one we already did, the paper here is a little bit shorter. That's because we cut part of it to make this collar piece. So what we're going to do is we're going to measure about 1.5 inches from the top of the paper. If you want a thicker collar, then you're going to measure a wider line. If you want a thinner collar, then you're going to measure a smaller line. So I'm going to do 1.5 inches, and I'm just going to make some little marks at 1.5 inches all the way down. I'm doing this along the long edge of the paper. Okay, so I've got my little marks. Now I'm going to connect them all, make a straight line. I'm using pencil for this so that I can erase it later when I'm done cutting. Okay, so there's my line. Now, this is the tricky part. You want to leave some on the front of your card for the collar, but you want to cut off the bit on the back. So, you're going to want to take your card, pretend like you're opening it, and decide which part is the front and which part is the back. So this part here is going to be the part I'm opening. I'm going to leave this strip on and cut it into a collar. This is the back where I close the card. I'm going to cut this whole strip off right to the seam. So first, I'm just going to cut this piece out of the back. Got a little bookmark if you need it. So we've got our card here. We've got it with a taller bit, our line still drawn on the front, and it's shorter in the back now. So next up is the tricky part. We're going to make the collar. And what we're going to do on this front part here, we're going to cut in on this line from each side a little bit, about 1 inch. And then we're going to stop cutting and leave it attached in the middle. So I'm going to take my ruler, I'm going to measure 1 inch in from the side and make a mark. If you want like a collar here that's farther out, you'll measure a smaller distance. If you want a collar that's farther in, then you will measure a bigger distance. So I think I'm going to do just a smidge more than 1 inch, and I'm going to measure it from both sides, the same amount in. Okay. You can see there I made a little hash mark. I didn't make it giant because I'm going to erase it later. This is just a little mark to help me know where to stop cutting. So I'm going to get my little scissors out now. If you got medium scissors, they'll work for the whole thing, but I want to be careful here, so I'm going to use my little scissors, and I'm going to cut on the line and stop at my hash mark there. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. I'm going to cut on that line and stop at the hash mark. Okay, now we've got the corners. They're kind of loose here, but the middle still attached. What we're going to do next is we're going to take that corner and you can fold it in like your collar. You're going to fold it at maybe about a 45-degree angle here. And you're going to do the same thing on both sides. And before you crease it down, you can decide, oh, my collar is not quite big enough, so I'm gonna fold it a little back from where I cut. Or you might decide, oh, my collar is not the right size, I'm gonna cut in a little further and adjust it that way. So before you crease it down, you've got that option. You can decide if you want your collar tips to touch or if you want them to overlap a little bit. I'm going to have mine overlap a little bit. Whatever way you like is just fine. And I'm going to crease that again at about a 45-degree angle. If you want to be really precise, you can get a protractor out and make sure they're the same, but I'm okay if they're a little bit different from each other. So there, I've got my collar pieces. And next, I'm going to do something that is optional. I've got a marker here, a black marker. Now you can see on this card, you can see like the edges of the collar a little bit better than you can here. And that's because I took a marker and I colored right on the edge of the paper, just to give it a little extra definition. So, got my marker here. I'm going to go along the sides of this folded part. And I'm just going to color it like that. If you want a larger line, you could color right on the front. I don't really need a large line, I don't think. I'm just going to give it a little bit of a darkness so that it shows up a little better. It's tricky when you get close into the paper. Alright, I'm going to do the same on the other side. And I color right along the edge, but not on the front of the paper. And right in there. Now look, you'll see I goofed. I got a little mark on the inside, but that's okay because remember we're going to fold that down and you won't see it. So if you make a little mistake that way, no problem. If you get it on the front, you've got this little bookmark. You can put a piece right over it to hide that little mark. Okay, now my shirt here is missing something that this shirt has. We got to make the tie. There's a couple ways you can do this. My preferred way is to color on the paper, make a design, and then cut out the tie shape. For me, this way helps me to get an even pattern across the whole thing. But you can also make a tie shape and then color on that later. I find that if I have the tie shape cut out first, then I adjust the pattern to the edges and it doesn't look quite like a pattern you would see on a regular tie. You could make a pattern for this if you want. Just look up a coloring sheet for a tie online and then cut it out that way. I'm just going to freehand it here. So I've got my piece of paper cut into the shape of a tie. And next up, I'm going to get my glue back out. I'm going to glue the tie onto the shirt. So I'm going to put glue all over the back. I'm going to try not to do a ton of glue, especially if you colored with marker on the pattern of your tie. You're going to want to use just a smidge of glue. If you're worried about having some big dots on there, you could put the glue in a bowl and grab a paintbrush. Make sure it's small and even that way. Now, this is another tricky part. We're going to want to glue this tie on, but we want to put the tie so the top of it is lined up with this part where our collar points come in. If we put it too high, our tie is going to show in the neck space. If we put it too low, our tie is not going to look like it's on the collar. So you're going to want to line it up with that line that you drew earlier. If your points are coming in there, if your points are coming a little higher than the line, then you're going to want to put it up. My points are coming in a smidge lower than the line, so that's where I'm going to put my tie, just a little bit lower than the line. All right, got that tie glued on. I'm going to erase my line now. I don't need it to guide me anymore. I've got all the bits cut and glued that I need that line for. All right, and the last step is to glue your collar points down. So I'm going to put glue on this part of the collar and this part of the collar, and then glue it down. So you see I got glue on my wings, and down they go. There you go. You got a card that looks just like a shirt with a tie. You can make it out of any colors you like. And if your paper's kind of dark and you wanna use that method we used on our watermelon card with the little piece of white paper inside, so you make sure it's easy to read, go for it. You can mix up these styles on any kind of card you're making. So there we go. We got the shirt one ready to go. If you want to write inside, there's no glue on this paper, so that's ready to go right away. I'm going to let it dry because we have one more card to make, and then we can write on them all together. Okay, for our 3D pop-up card, this is a lot of fun. You can do any kind of shape. I've got a whale in here. The top says, "You're whaley great," but you can make any shape you want pop up. I'm going to show you how to make that pop-up function in the card. So I've got my whale and my spout pre-cut here. You can see on this one, we had to draw the water spout on because I was so excited. I cut my whale really big and he didn't have room for the water spout to stay inside the card when it was closed. I was bummed about that. So with this one, I'm going to try a smaller whale. Hopefully his water spout will stay inside. When you are lining up your pieces to make sure they're going to stay inside once you got it popped or folded up, you're going to want to place them in your card and make sure they fit in this top to bottom space. If they are too tall or hanging out the bottom, then you know your shapes are too big and you gotta trim them down. Okay, so for this pop-up feature, what we're gonna do is we're actually gonna have two pieces of paper to make the card. You're gonna take your paper, fold it short side to short side, just like we've been doing, but you're gonna do that twice. Now, my paper, when I put them one inside the other, the edges line up pretty good. But if you have a thicker paper, maybe like cardstock, you might find that the edges don't line up super well. If your edges are sticking out, then what you can do is you can take the inside one, give it the tiniest trim around the edges until when you put them inside one another, your edges line up the way you like. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to decide here which one's going to be the outside and which one's going to be the inside. For this card, it doesn't matter because I have the same color inside and outside, but if you had maybe a red on the outside and you wanted a green on the inside, then you'd want to make sure to grab your inside paper. All right, now, the next thing you're going to need to do is decide where you want your pop-up whale or your pop-up whatever you're popping up placed. I'm going to put my whale in the middle of the card, but you can see my whale has this side that's kind of thick and this side that's kind of thin. And so I'm gonna put the pop-up piece that my whale's gonna stick to, I'm gonna put that in this bigger space so it's got more area to stick to. So if I want my whale in the middle, I'm gonna need my pop-up piece a little bit off to the side. So you can hold up whatever you want to glue on the pop-up piece, and you can figure out where do I want this attached to the inside of the card. So once you have that decided, you're going to take your scissors and you're going to cut a piece of the paper. You're not going to cut all the way through, you're just going to cut a little bit. And you're going to cut two lines that are parallel here. but you're not gonna cut across the top. The next thing we're gonna do is a little folding. If you've got a tall pop-up thing, you can cut this tall, but mine's kind of short, so I've cut my lines short here. You're gonna wanna size it depending on your item. What you're gonna do next is you're gonna take this piece, the little one, you're gonna fold it down, and then you're gonna fold it to the other side, same thing. And then you're gonna bring it back up. Then you're gonna open the card up, and you're gonna pop that piece out so it's folding the opposite way. You can see when I fold my card here, this part goes in, but this part comes forwards. So that little piece is what's gonna help your inside whale or whatever pop up. All right, so I've got my pop-up structure ready to go. What I'm gonna do next is I'm gonna glue this inside paper to the outside paper. I got my back and my front glued together, and when I open it up, I still got that little pop-up piece in there. Next up, I'm gonna put my whale together. Now, if your whale is just one piece, it's already together, but my whale is two pieces. He's got his body and his water spout, so I'm just gonna glue that water spout on. Look at that cute little whale. So I've got my card structure together, and I've got my pop-up piece together. The last step is to put your pop-up piece onto that little outie ledge that we made in there. So I am gonna decide, I want my whale to pop up like this. You're gonna try it out without the glue, just to make sure that you've got it in exactly the place you want it. And then all you'll do, get your glue, put a little bit on the back where your whale is gonna pop up from, and stick that whale onto that pop-up piece. What I like to do to make sure I get that glue really pushed down, I can't really push it this way because it's just paper and it's not as strong as I can push, but I can close the card up once it's on and give it a little squish to make sure it's on there really good. And look at that. And you'll remember we said as long as your shape is smaller than the one side of the paper, it will fit inside when it's closed. So we got our whale with his water spout fitting inside the card. Look at that, so cute. All right, just like our watermelon card, this one's got a lot of glue on it. We need to let it dry before we can write on it. So I'm gonna put that off to the side to dry. Here's our watermelon card. It's looking a little bit wet still on the inside, but it's dry enough we can write on it. So for me, I just like to take a marker. If you're a colored pencils person or a pens or a crayon, you can write on there with whatever you like. And we use this cute saying, "You're one in a million," but you could write Happy Father's Day or anything else. If you put something else on instead of a watermelon, you probably don't want to say you're one in a million if it's a butterfly or a picnic or anything like that. I'm just going to write Happy Father's Day on this one. You've got your Father's Day card. You can write a special message on the inside to whoever you're giving it to. And we've got all these really cute designs. We'd love to see what you guys come up with when you make your card. Go ahead and take a picture, and you can post it in the comments of this video. Let us know what you made. Maybe you made a pop-up whale just like this, or maybe you made something else. All right, have a great time, guys. Let us know what you made. Bye.